Is there really such a thing as muscle memory? Well, if you've ever ridden a bike, played a team sport, or lifted weights in the gym, then you're probably familiar with the term muscle memory. It's commonly used to describe how muscles seem to remember previous neuromuscular adaptations to exercise. However, what's often overlooked is muscle memory in the context of muscle growth. So if you've worked hard in the gym to build significant muscle mass and then took a full year off from the gym, would you bounce back to your former physique faster than somebody that's new to training? Well, let's dive into the scientific evidence behind muscle memory when it comes to muscle growth. Skeletal muscle cells are the largest in the body and require multiple nuclei to support their size. For instance, a single bicep muscle fiber, typically 10 centimeters in length, contains around 3,000 nuclei. The sartorius muscle, which is the longest muscle in the body, would probably contain 10, if not thousands of nuclei. The exact number of nuclei depends on factors like muscle size, training status, and other variables. Each nucleus has a limited capacity for building or transporting materials, which is essential for muscle function and growth. Nuclei found in the muscle fiber, which are called myonuclei, support the maintenance and growth of the surrounding area within a fiber. Essentially, these nuclei help provide the genetic materials for a rather limited area within that fiber, which is why muscle fibers contain so many nuclei dispersed throughout the cell. In fact, if a muscle fiber only contained a single nuclei, it wouldn't be able to support the metabolic needs of that entire fiber. Now, when you resistance train, both the size of your muscle fibers and the number of nuclei within those fibers will increase. Some researchers suggest that the addition of these nuclei may be semi-permanent. For example, a study by Baxter and colleagues in mice demonstrated this concept using a technique called synergistic ablation, which induces muscle hypertrophy. A follow-up study by the same group of researchers showed that muscle atrophy caused by denervation, which is basically the removal of the nerve to cause the muscle to shrink, didn't result in a loss of nuclei, even though the muscle fiber cross-sectional area dropped by more than 50%. While this wasn't an overload intervention and the study was done in mice, it does add evidence that nuclei are not easily lost as muscle fiber size. These findings offer insight into human muscle memory and could explain why muscle tissue regrows quickly after a period of detraining. The muscle fibers essentially already have the necessary machinery to support larger fibers. Now, I know humans aren't the same as mice. However, animal models like these provide invaluable insights for research, especially since conducting detraining studies in humans can be more challenging due to issues with sample sizes and participant retention. Now, unfortunately, the information available in humans is not quite as compelling. For example, Cuddy and colleagues from 2004 conducted a study where non-resistance trained men performed heavy resistance training exercise for 3 months, training 3 times per week. The exercises included the hack squats, the leg press, the knee extension, and the hamstring curls. Muscle biopsies from the vastus lateralis were taken before training, after 30 and 90 days of training, and during a 3-month detraining period. The study found a 6% increase in fiber size after 30 days and a 17% increase after 90 days of training. However, there was no change in the number of myonuclei at any point during the study. Because the nuclei didn't increase, they couldn't provide a memory mechanism during the detraining period. While this study did not provide compelling evidence that an increase in myonuclei provides muscle memory, it does provide us with data suggesting that additional nuclei may not even be necessary to support muscle growth, at least in the short term, which was 3 months in the case of this study. Now, while there isn't overwhelming evidence suggesting that myonuclei provide a mechanism for muscle memory in humans, research looking at anabolic steroids provides an interesting perspective. In a study by Egner and colleagues in 2013, mice were treated with anabolic steroids for 14 days, resulting in a 77% increase in muscle fiber size and a 66% increase in the number of nuclei. After stopping the steroids, muscle size returned to baseline, but the number of nuclei remained elevated. 3 months later, the mice underwent muscle overload-induced growth. The mice that had been previously treated with steroids showed a 30% increase in muscle size in just 6 days, while the control mice showed no difference in growth. Now, in a study by Erickson and colleagues from 2005, muscle biopsies were taken from the vastus lateralis of powerlifters with and without a history of use of anabolic steroids. The study found that the athletes with a history of anabolic drug use had 32% more nuclei in their muscle fibers compared to non-users. Additionally, the muscle fiber cross-sectional area, or CSA, for type 1 and type 2 fibers was 61 and 41% larger respectively in the drug users. The results suggest that anabolic drugs may promote larger muscle fiber size, which could be explained by increasing number of nuclei. So what are my key takeaways from this data? Well, let's start with myonuclei and muscle growth. Animal studies suggesting that acquiring new myonuclei could make muscle regrowth easier, possibly explaining why muscle growth after a break is often faster than the initial growth phase. Number 2, human studies are still evolving. Now, while these human studies haven't consistently shown permanent increases in myonuclei, longer-term training may lead to lasting adaptations, potentially contributing to muscle memory. Number 3, myonuclei aren't permanent. Researchers show that myonuclei can be lost during periods of muscle atrophy or aging, which highlights the importance of consistent training to maintain muscle gains. A recent meta-analysis from leading researchers in this area concluded that epigenetics and other mechanisms might also play a role in how muscles adapt, meaning muscle memory could involve more than just myonuclei. Now, last but not least, the unfortunate truth is more research is needed to truly understand muscle memory in humans, and more long-term studies are necessary.
Thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video informative, make sure that you like this post, subscribe to my channel for more evidence-based content, and if you have any questions about muscle growth and training, feel free to leave me a comment below.